What's the one spiritual practice that's shared by Christianity, Islam, Buddhism, and Hinduism? And why is it shared? What is the significance of this one spiritual practice that makes it a foundation for all these different religions? That's what we'll go over in this video. My name is Tim. I've been studying spirituality for the past 15 years. I grew up a Christian. I studied Eastern teachings in my 20s. And most recently, I've taken up spiritual science, which has really allowed me to combine the best of both worlds. The one spiritual practice that is shared among all these different religions is devotion. On the surface, it seems simple. Of course, you're going to be devoted to your religious beliefs, right? Well, it goes much deeper than it would seem. In this video, we're going to discuss what devotion is as a spiritual practice, how it leads the seeker into what we call higher worlds or the spiritual realm, what inner changes take place when devotion is cultivated properly, and how one can take the path of devotion into their daily lives. All right, let's dive in. When I talk about devotion, I'm not just talking about being a devout religious person on the outside. I just want to clarify that we can do things externally that would make it seem that we are devout people. But I'm much more interested in the true inner feeling of devotion. Devotion is a reverent mood towards a person or a thing. It can be a person, thing, or even a cause, but one can also be devout towards something more lofty, like knowledge or truth. Or better said, devotion can and does lead one to what we call higher knowledge. Devotion, when cultivated properly, is the emotion that eventually leads the seeker into higher knowledge and spiritual worlds. Let's say I express a great spiritual truth. How would you understand it? You might think about it and use logic to prove it to yourself, right? You'd use logic to prove something of great truth or knowledge. But what leads a seeker to this truth in the first place? I mean, why would one feel compelled to understand a great truth? If we had nothing within us that pointed us first to that which was unknown, we would never seek spiritual knowledge. If we use logic to prove higher knowledge, what proves logic? Only something that has nothing to do with logic can prove logic. And feeling is what compels us to logic. And through comprehending a great truth through logic, one is eventually led back to feeling. So if we're to seek out and comprehend the highest knowledge of an unknown spiritual world, behind it is that devotional feeling we call devotion. And it's this devotion that works and stirs up our soul before we even know what it is that we seek, and leads us up, so to speak, up the mountain in search for higher knowledge. When at a young age one looks up to an elder with reverence, that's a good precursor to being a spiritual seeker in the future. You see, devotion and reverence are seeds that one can have when young, which bears a special fruit in relation to the unknown, to spiritual worlds when one is older. Because in these seeds of devotion, we have a small reflection of what that all-encompassing devotion can lead up to, which is the striving to seek higher knowledge in the unknown spiritual worlds before we even know what it is that we're seeking. So it's a special thing to have feelings of devotion when young. We can even say it's placed there for one who has a specific karma to one day be a spiritual seeker. Thus, in devotion, we have a power that enables us to take the path to the unknown. And since it is true that the spiritual and the unknown give rise to powers and abilities that are known and evident in the outer human senses, it is also the case that our own powers, which flow to us from the spiritual world, can only flow to us if we seek the right path to this spiritual world ourselves, the path through devotion. Rudolf Steiner. In order to take the path of devotion, you must look in all things around you, in all your experiences, for what can spark this admiration and respect. If you meet other people and criticize their weaknesses, you rob yourself of higher cognitive power, But if you try to enter deeply and lovingly into another person's good qualities, you gather in that force. Experienced seekers know what strength they gain by always looking for the good in everything and withholding their critical judgment. This practice should not remain simply an outer rule of life, but must take hold of the innermost part of your soul. But you must also understand a peculiar fact about devotion. It leads your ego out of itself. So if you're not careful, you could lose your footing in the world. Because the ego is what gives you the ability to judge and discern in the external world. So if you're to take up a highly devotional mood, you need to remember to think and illuminate the object of your devotion, always, constantly. In this way, there's no danger of you and losing yourself and your ego. Now, on the surface, it's not easy to see that feelings of reverence and devotion are in any way connected with higher knowledge. That's because we tend to see cognition as an isolated faculty that has no connection with anything else occurring in our souls. But we are missing the crucial fact that it is the soul that cognizes. What food is to the physical body, emotions are to the soul. And the soul is nourished when we cultivate feelings of devotion, reverence, and respect, especially in relation to knowledge. And remember, all feelings of disrespect, criticism, and antipathy crush our ability to grow spiritual organs. This may seem simple, but you must harbor these feelings in your innermost being. You can't just pretend and do it externally. Just like the rays of the sun give nourishment and light to the plants, so feelings of devotion give nourishment to the spiritual eyes and ears that you long to develop. That's it for this video. Thanks for watching, and until next time.